Hello everyone, I'm Amelie. There are some live stories we just can't say, the ones we decide to keep until when it's time to share. Well, this is one of them. This is my story. The first time I saw Jakob, I was sitting cross-legged on the sofa in our small, cluttered apartment, sketching the stars I dreamed of exploring one day. My mother, Elodie, had been through a parade of partners, each one leaving less of an impression than the last. But Jakob was different. His eyes seemed to carry the weight of the world, yet they sparkled with a curiosity that mirrored my own. He was an architect, a creator of spaces where people lived their lives, and that's exactly what he did for us. He moved into our lives with the precision of one of his designs, bringing order where there had been chaos. The house on Rue de Vignes, which he designed, was unlike anything I had known. It was a blend of modern lines and traditional French charm, with large windows that let in the morning light, bathing the rooms in a warm glow. Jakob taught me chess, explaining each move with the patience of a master. He would sit with me, his hands guiding mine across the board, teaching me not just the game, but the art of strategy. He listened to my dreams of becoming an astrophysicist, his interest genuine, making me feel seen in ways I never had before. By 16, I was no longer the child sketching stars. My body had changed, and so had the way Jakob looked at me. It was subtle at first, a compliment here, a lingering gaze there. But it was during one autumn evening, as the leaves outside our window turned to gold, that the shift became undeniable. Elodie was away, always chasing something new, leaving Jakob and me to our own devices. He suggested we celebrate my growing up with a grown-up dinner. The table was set with fine china, the kind reserved for special occasions, and candles flickered in the soft evening light. Jakob cooked. His movements were as precise in the kitchen as they were with his designs. We drank wine, which he said was part of becoming an adult in French culture, though I knew it was illegal. The wine warmed my insides, loosening my tongue. We talked about my future, about the stars, but then the conversation veered. His hand brushed mine, and I felt a shiver, not of cold, but of something unnamed, something forbidden. That night, after dinner, he kissed me. It was not the kiss of a father or even a stepfather. It was something else, something that felt wrong, yet was wrapped in the guise of affection. I was too stunned to react, too confused to understand fully what was happening. The weeks that followed were a dance on the edge of a knife. Jakob's behavior in public didn't change. He was the supportive, caring figure he'd always been. But in private, his boundaries blurred. His touches lingered longer, his words carried double meanings. I felt trapped between the need for his stability and the growing realization of his betrayal. That night, when Jakob came into my room, it was under the pretense of discussing my future. The air was thick with the scent of the lavender candles he had lit, casting shadows that danced on the walls. He spoke softly about university choices, his voice a gentle hum in the quiet room, but then his words trailed off as he moved closer. His touch wasn't the guiding hand of a father or teacher. It was different, insistent, crossing lines that should have been sacred. I felt his breath on my neck, his hands exploring where they shouldn't, and all I could do was freeze, caught between the comfort he had once provided and the stark realization of his betrayal. The room spun as he took liberties with my body, my heart pounding with confusion and fear. It wasn't love or even desire on his part, but a misuse of trust, an act that would forever alter the image of the man I thought I knew. The aftermath was like living in a fog. I withdrew from everyone, even my mother, who was too caught up in her own world to notice my change. I felt dirty, betrayed, and incredibly alone. I knew I needed to escape. I applied to universities in other cities, choosing one in Strasbourg, far from Lyon and far from Jakob. Telling Elodie was hard, but I framed it as needing space to grow, which was true in every sense. At university, I began to rebuild myself. I made friends who knew nothing of my past, who saw me as I wanted to be seen. I started therapy, which was like slowly untangling a knot. It was hard, revisiting those nights, but necessary. Each session was a step towards healing, towards understanding that what happened was not my fault. Years later, when I returned for Elodie's funeral, the city felt both familiar and alien. The house on Rue de Vigne was unchanged, but I was not. Jacob was there, his hair now gray at the temples, his eyes still holding stories. But now I saw them for what they were, a mask for his inner turmoil. At the funeral, we didn't speak. Our confrontation was silent, a shared gaze across the coffin of the woman who had connected us. His eyes searched mine, perhaps for forgiveness, perhaps for acknowledgement. I gave neither. Instead, I felt a sense of closure, not from him, but from within myself. That night, I stood in the garden, looking up at the stars, just as I had as a child. But now, I understood them better. I had walked through darkness to find my own light. I was no longer the child dreaming of the cosmos. I was a woman, scarred but resilient, who had reclaimed her narrative under the vast, indifferent sky. And so, with the stars as my witness, I whispered my goodbyes to the past, to Jacob, to the girl I once was, and to the future I would now embrace on my own terms. I do hope one day I find genuine healing,